The whispers started quietly, barely noticeable at first. Small comments from insiders, vague hints from people close to the team, and scattered reports online all suggested that something unusual was happening in Cleveland. But by Sunday, those whispers had grown into a story impossible to ignore. A quarterback controversy that seemed to run far deeper than performance or strategy. According to analysts and off-the-record voices around the league, what unfolded on the field might not have been a simple coaching decision at all. Instead, it appeared to be part of a much larger struggle behind the scenes. A power struggle quietly shaping the franchise's direction long before kickoff. Reports say the tension didn't start under the stadium lights. It had been simmering all week. While Dillon Gabriel ran nearly every first-team rep, Shedeur Sanders found himself mostly on the sidelines, running generic plays and scout looks that didn't prepare him for the game ahead. He was rarely in meetings where timing, chemistry, and adjustments were built, leaving him disconnected from the starting receivers and the offense's rhythm. Staffers noticed the unusual pattern, sensing something off about the week's preparation, though no explosive incidents had yet occurred. And then Sunday arrived. Nothing dramatic at first, no turnovers or clear mistakes. But in the middle of a routine drive, Gabriel was suddenly pulled from the game. The sideline froze. Players exchanged confused looks. Analysts later admitted they couldn't find any logical reason for the timing of the switch. And just moments later, Shedeur's name was called. Even he looked stunned, stepping into a game he hadn't been set up to play. Whatever had been happening behind the scenes was now on full display, and the quiet whispers had finally exploded into public confusion and suspicion. The whispers started quietly, almost imperceptible at first. Small comments, vague hints, and scattered reports from insiders suggested something unusual was brewing in Cleveland. But by the time Sunday arrived, those whispers had grown into a story no one could ignore. A quarterback controversy that seemed to run far deeper than mere performance debates. According to analysts, insiders, and off-the-record voices around the league, what unfolded might not have been a routine coaching decision at all. Instead, it appeared to be the latest chapter in a long-standing power struggle behind the scenes, the kind of tension nobody talks about publicly, but everyone recognizes. Sources say the trouble didn't begin under the stadium lights. It had been simmering quietly all week, during the practices leading into the game. While Dillon Gabriel handled nearly every meaningful first-team rep, Shedeur Sanders found himself largely on the outside, running generic scout plays and concepts that had nothing to do with preparing for Baltimore. He was rarely something involved in core installation meetings, where timing, adjustments, and chemistry are built. Staffers noticed, pointing out that he barely touched the ball with the starters, never synced on timing routes, and wasn't included in situational walkthroughs that prepare a quarterback for unexpected moments in the game. The pattern created a subtle buzz among coaches and staff. While nothing overtly explosive had happened yet, those inside the building kept noticing the same thing. Something about the week didn't feel normal. Even minor details, like the absence of meaningful reps or the unusual separation from the main offensive unit, were enough to make players and staff uneasy. And while outwardly everything appeared routine, the tension was quietly building, setting the stage for the unexpected turn that would eventually shake the entire franchise. By midweek, insiders say the mood had shifted from casual observation to quiet concern. Questions circulated privately about why the reps were so heavily one-sided and why a promising young quarterback was being prepared in a way that didn't align with standard development practices. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken uncertainty, an undercurrent of unease that hinted the drama wasn't going to wait for game day. Whatever was happening behind closed doors, it was about to surface in a way that no one in Cleveland or the league could ignore. Sunday arrived, and the tension that had quietly built all week finally erupted, though not in the way anyone expected. The moment that set everything off didn't come with a dramatic turnover or an injury. It happened in the middle of a routine drive when Dillon Gabriel, who had been running the offense cleanly and showing no signs of hesitation, was suddenly pulled. Reports from insiders say the confusion on his face was immediate. He jogged over to the sideline, expecting a coaching note or adjustment, but was met instead with a quiet directive. He was being replaced. The sideline reportedly froze. Teammates exchanged puzzled glances, unsure if they had missed a critical signal or if something deeper was unfolding. Analysts reviewing the moment later admitted they couldn't find a clear strategic reason for the timing of the switch. And when Shedeur Sanders' name was called, even he appeared taken aback. The week had kept him largely on the outside, running opponent scout looks and focusing on long-term development rather than specific game preparation. To be thrust into the starting role mid-drive with no meaningful reps, no synced timing with receivers, and no clear situational guidance was unprecedented. As he stepped onto the field, it became painfully obvious how mismatched the preparation had been. Routes didn't align, timing felt off, and protection schemes were designed for someone else entirely. Yet Sanders fought through it, relying on raw instinct, scrambling when pockets collapsed and improvising when plays broke down. From the bench, the tension was palpable. Staffers and players alike could sense that this wasn't a normal in-game adjustment. It was chaos in real time. Veteran players reportedly voiced quiet frustration, noting that the issues weren't the result of inexperience, but of the week's lopsided reps. Receivers struggled to sync mid-route. Offensive linemen noticed protection calls that didn't match Sanders' tendencies, and running backs appeared confused by unfamiliar backfield communications. Meanwhile, coaching staff offered only brief, vague responses, leaving the players to connect the dots themselves. What should have been a routine game moment had instead revealed cracks in preparation, communication, and trust, setting off whispers that this switch was about far more than football. When Shedeur Sanders' name was called, the stadium felt the shift even before he reached the field. The week had kept him largely on the sidelines, running scout looks, working with backups, and focusing on long-term development. He hadn't touched the ball in any meaningful way with the starters, never synced on timing routes, and wasn't part of the situational walkthroughs that typically prepare a quarterback for high-pressure moments. To step into the middle of a game against one of the league's toughest defenses, untested in the context that mattered most, was unprecedented. And insiders say even he seemed stunned. As he jogged onto the field, several teammates reportedly noticed the brief, almost imperceptible hesitation in his expression. Quick questions about protections and adjustments were met with a simple, "Just go play." That was all the guidance he received. The mismatch between preparation and expectation became immediately visible. Routes fell out of sync. Timing looked off, and pockets collapsed faster than usual. Offensive linemen had to improvise on the fly to compensate for unfamiliar protections, while receivers struggled mid-route to find the rhythm they hadn't practiced with Sanders. Even running backs were left second-guessing signals and backfield communication that felt foreign. Yet despite the chaos, Sanders pushed forward. He scrambled, improvised, and relied entirely on raw instinct. People watching from the sidelines could feel the tension rising, recognizing that this was far from a typical in-game substitution. Whispers spread quickly across the locker room. Something about this week, the preparation, and the sudden switch simply didn't feel normal. Veteran players reportedly expressed quiet frustration, noting that these weren't the predictable mistakes of inexperience. They were the direct result of uneven reps and a week built around someone else. The confusion didn't remain confined to the field. Insiders claimed that frustration spread quietly through the team, from receivers to linemen to running backs, all wondering why a quarterback with almost no meaningful preparation was suddenly tasked with a high-stakes drive. And as Sanders battled through the misalignment, the atmosphere hinted at a larger story unfolding. A story that extended far beyond a single game or decision, touching on preparation, trust, and the deeper dynamics shaping the team behind closed doors. The moment Shedeur Sanders stepped onto the field, the tension that had been simmering all week spilled into the locker room. Players who had watched the entire practice week unfold were already uneasy. And now that unease transformed into sharp frustration. Veterans quietly questioned why a quarterback who hadn't taken a single meaningful rep with the starters was suddenly expected to lead a high-stakes drive against one of the toughest defenses in the league. Receivers reportedly shook their heads mid-route, realizing the timing and chemistry they had drilled for Gabriel simply weren't there. Offensive linemen noticed that protection calls didn't align with Sanders' mobility or comfort zones, and running backs struggled to sync with backfield communications that felt entirely foreign. Insiders say the coaching staff offered only brief, vague explanations, leaving players to connect the dots themselves. That lack of clarity, they claim, quickly spread suspicion throughout the locker room. Some players reportedly began to wonder if this wasn't just a football decision. Whispers suggested something deeper was at play. Decisions made behind closed doors, tensions between coaching staff and front office, and differing philosophies on who the franchise wanted to build around long-term. The post-game explanations, calling the move a simple evaluation, did little to ease concerns. If anything, they intensified them, leaving players exchanging quiet glances and muttering that the story didn't add up. By the end of the day, the locker room atmosphere had shifted. What should have been a routine post-game week instead became filled with questions, speculation, and quiet internal debate. According to insiders, these tensions weren't fleeting. They hinted at fractures that could influence the team's dynamics for weeks to come, far beyond a single substitution or moment on the field. The quarterback switch didn't just stir the locker room, it sent ripples through the front office and coaching staff. According to insiders, the move may have exposed a deeper struggle over who truly controls the team's direction. Some coaches reportedly favored sticking with the familiar starter, while front office leaders were said to be pushing for real investment in Shedeur Sanders, believing he was the future and needed opportunities to develop. Rumors suggest this tension had been quietly building for weeks, if not months. Closed-door meetings were reportedly increasingly divided, with disagreements over quarterback development growing into subtle internal resistance. Several voices claimed the mid-game substitution wasn't just an on-field decision. It may have been part of a larger effort to influence perceptions and underline a point in the ongoing debate. Observers outside the organization noticed the same patterns. The timing of the switch didn't make sense strategically unless seen through the lens of internal politics. Analysts note that the move didn't appear designed for football reasons alone, but perhaps to highlight a contrast between the quarterbacks and their readiness. Whispers inside the building suggested that some staff members may have anticipated Sanders would struggle without proper preparation, reinforcing the narrative favored by certain coaches. While none of these claims are confirmed, the speculation alone has intensified the controversy, pushing what should have been a simple quarterback debate into a broader story of power, vision, and influence within the franchise. By the time the dust settled, the quarterback decision had become more than a question of talent. It had become a window into an organizational clash that could shape the future of the team far beyond a single Sunday game. As the quarterback situation unfolded, the whispers inside Cleveland didn't quiet. They grew louder, feeding a mix of speculation and intrigue that blurred the line between football decisions and organizational drama. According to insiders, some believe the mid-game substitution may not have been spontaneous at all. Rumors suggest it was quietly discussed days earlier, with certain members of the coaching staff allegedly weighing how the quarterback room narrative could be controlled. The idea alone, whether true or not, stirred a storm, as it suggested the switch could have been strategically timed to influence perceptions both inside the locker room and beyond. Sources claim that behind closed doors, phrases like "let it play out naturally" or "show the gap between the quarterbacks" were reportedly part of conversations that now fuel speculation about internal resistance. The suggestion is that some coaches may have expected Sanders to struggle without full preparation, which would reinforce their preferred direction for the team. These claims remain unverified, yet the sheer number of voices repeating similar concerns has created a persistent atmosphere of suspicion. Analysts and fans watching from the outside noticed the same unsettling patterns. The move didn't feel strategic in the conventional sense, and the timing appeared off unless considered through the lens of something bigger than football. Even after the game, the public narrative of a simple evaluation clashed with what players experienced on the field. Veterans questioned the mismatch between preparation and expectation, while younger players found themselves caught in the middle, unsure whose message to trust. The speculation extends beyond a single play or even a single game. Whispers suggest this quarterback debate may just be the surface-level symptom of a deeper organizational clash. A struggle over vision, control, and who gets to shape the franchise's future. While none of these claims are confirmed, the rumors alone have intensified scrutiny on every decision the team makes, from practice rotations to public statements. For those closely watching the situation, the real drama isn't just about who starts or who succeeds. It's about whether the franchise can reconcile internal tensions before they grow even larger. The controversy surrounding the quarterback switch has transformed a routine decision into a window revealing simmering disagreements, philosophical divides, and the challenges of balancing short-term performance with long-term investment. In Cleveland, the whispers are no longer quiet, and the speculation isn't just idle chatter. It could define the organization's next chapter. The fallout from that mid-game quarterback switch didn't stay on the field. It followed the team straight into the locker room and echoed through the organization. According to insiders, the atmosphere became quietly tense, with players unsure whose message to trust. Veterans who usually stayed out of internal debates reportedly began asking pointed questions, trying to understand why preparation all week looked one way, while the public explanation painted a completely different picture. Younger players, meanwhile, were caught in the middle, watching leadership figures they respected take noticeably different stances on what really happened. This uncertainty didn't just affect the locker room. People close to the front office reportedly expressed frustration, not just with the in-game performance, but with the perception that their long-term investment, the young quarterback the team had been developing, might have been placed in a situation that didn't set him up to succeed. Some insiders suggest that this tension could force difficult conversations between ownership, executives, and coaching staff, though others caution the organization may address matters privately rather than inflame public speculation. Analysts reviewing the game also fueled the debate. The mismatch in preparation was too obvious to ignore, prompting questions about the team's developmental strategy. Meanwhile, those close to the young quarterback's camp reportedly remained calm, observing the situation carefully and focusing on protecting his long-term trajectory without making any public complaints or dramatic statements. The path forward remains uncertain. Some insiders believe adjustments to practice rotations and communication could help repair the fractures, while others think the controversy may linger if inconsistencies between public messaging and player experiences continue. One question keeps surfacing behind the scenes. Can the franchise realign its leadership before the fallout grows even larger? For those watching closely, it's clear that this quarterback decision was never just about one game. It exposed cracks between preparation and expectation, coaching philosophy and organizational vision, short-term control and long-term investment. Until the organization openly the lines behind a unified plan, the whispers, speculation, and tension are likely to continue, reminding everyone that in Cleveland, the fight isn't just for wins anymore. It's for clarity, stability, and the credibility of the franchise's future. The situation in Cleveland has grown far beyond a simple debate over a single quarterback. Switch. What looked like a mid-game adjustment revealed long-simmering tensions within the organization between coaching philosophy and front office vision, short-term control and long-term investment, preparation and expectation. According to insiders, players and staff alike are still trying to make sense of what happened, and the uncertainty has quietly spread from the locker room into every corner of the team. Veterans who usually steer clear of internal drama are now asking pointed questions behind the scenes, while younger players find themselves caught in the middle, observing the differing stances of leadership figures they once relied on. The front office reportedly feels frustrated, not only by the performance, but by the perception that their young quarterback, a long-term investment, might have been set up to fail. Analysts and outsiders have echoed similar concerns, noting that the timing and preparation mismatch was too obvious to ignore and questioning whether the developmental strategy for the team's future has been compromised. Meanwhile, the young quarterbacks camp has maintained a quiet vigilance, focusing on long-term growth rather than reacting publicly, leaving observers wondering how much patience remains before the pressure starts to affect decisions on and off the field. What comes next is unclear. Some insiders believe adjustments in practice rotations and communication could repair the fractures, but others think the controversy may linger, especially if discrepancies between what the organization says publicly and what players experience privately continue. One question keeps surfacing behind the scenes. Can the franchise realign its leadership before the fallout grows even larger? Ultimately, this quarterback decision was never just about one game or one player. It exposed deeper cracks in trust, philosophy, and organizational alignment, leaving the franchise at a crossroads. Until Cleveland's leadership openly unites behind a clear plan, whispers, speculation, and tension are likely to continue, shaping every decision and amplifying every misstep. For the Browns, the challenge isn't only winning games anymore. It's regaining clarity, stability, and credibility. And how they navigate this moment may define not just the rest of the season, but the trajectory of the franchise for years to come.